Hello, it is Foundation Friday, September 15th, 2023. Steve Sipress here with another in our multi-part series on the fantastic foundational book, The Magic of Thinking Big by Dr. David J. Schwartz. We're in the final chapter, How to Think Like a Leader, and we are on Dr. Schwartz's final leadership rule number 4, which is to take time out to confer with yourself and thereby tap into your supreme thinking power. Dr. Schwartz tells us that we usually picture leaders as exceptionally busy people, and they are. Leadership requires being in the thick of things, but while it's usually overlooked, it is noteworthy that leaders spend considerable time alone with nothing but their own thinking apparatus. Check the lives of the great religious leaders. You'll find each of them spend considerable time alone. Political leaders, those who make lasting words in history for good or bad, gain insight through solitude. Many of the leaders leading universities require professors to lecture as few as 5 hours per week so the professor has time to think. Many outstanding business executives are surrounded all day by assistants, secretaries, telephone, and reports, but follow them around all week, all month, and you will discover that they spend a surprising amount of time in uninterrupted thought. The point is this: the successful person in any field takes time out to confer with himself or herself. Leaders use solitude to put the pieces of a problem together, to work out solutions, to plan, and in one phrase, to do their super thinking. Many people fail to tap into their creative leadership power because they confer with everybody and everything else but themselves. Turning the page with one hand, always a little tricky. You know this kind of person well. He's the fellow who goes to great lengths not to be alone. He goes to extremes to surround himself with people. He can't stand being alone in his office, so he goes prowling around to see other people. Seldom does he spend evenings alone. He feels compelled to talk with others every waking moment. He devours a huge diet of small talk and gossip when this person is forced by circumstances to be physically alone. Instead, he finds ways to keep from being mentally alone. At times like these, he resorts to TV, newspaper, radio, telephone. Today, it's the internet, cell phone, social media, and apps, and whatever. Anything that will take over his thinking process for him. In effect, he says, here, Mr. TV, Mr. Newspaper, Mr. Internet, occupy my mind for me. I'm afraid to occupy it with my own thoughts. Dr. Schwartz calls this guy Mr. I can't stand to be alone. It's the person who shuns independent thought, keeps his own mind blacked out. He is psychologically scared of his own thoughts. As time goes by, Mr. I can't stand to be alone grows increasingly shallow. He makes many ill-considered moves. He fails to develop firmness of purpose, personal stability. He is unfortunately ignorant of the superpower lying unused just behind his forehead. Don't be a Mr. I can't stand to be alone. Successful leaders tap into their superpower through being alone. You can too. And Dr. Schwartz gives us a few examples, and I'm sure you know, and maybe you are. An introvert, lots of successful business people, especially in the world of advertising, marketing, sales, while they appear, oh, he's got the gift of gab, he should be a salesperson. But in my experience, most successful salespeople, including me, are introverts by nature, and we enjoy being alone, and we make positive use of being alone. We're not just being alone because, we wouldn't be Mr. I love to be alone guy. It's we know that in times of solitude, we gather our thoughts and we get a lot done. Dr. Schwartz tells us you can use your alone time to do two types of thinking, directed and undirected. To do directed thinking, review a major problem that's facing you. In solitude, your mind will study the problem objectively and lead you to the right answer. To do undirected thinking, just let your mind select what it wishes to think about. In moments like these, your subconscious mind taps your memory bank, which in turn feeds your conscious mind. Undirected thinking is very helpful in doing self-evaluation. It helps you get down to the very basic matters like how can I do better? What should be my next move? Remember, the main job of the leader is thinking, and the best preparation for leadership is thinking. Spend some time in managed solitude every day and think yourself to success. And That comes from people will get up extra early before the whole family is up in the hubbub and the breakfast, kids going off to school, whatever it is. They'll go for a walk at lunchtime, shut the door, close the door, tell your assistant hold all the calls. If you're working from home, shut the door to the office, turn off all distractions, internet, email, phone notifications. I don't even know how to turn any notifications on my phone. It never beeps, it never rings, it never makes noise. I don't know what I did, but I like it that way. And so I take a lot of time to, and sometimes I work from home. My beautiful wife Michelle will walk in or walk by or say, and I think to myself, gee, it must seem like, I'm not working, like I'm not doing anything. Well, I'm not afraid of not doing anything. I'm not always doing. Very often I am mulling things over. I'm working on campaigns and strategies for my clients, for myself. Today, in fact, long day. We're here almost midnight on the East Coast, but it's 8:30 here local time in Arizona on daylight savings time in the summer, and had a long day. I launched a new, the unofficial online Dan Kennedy Mastermind group that I launched yesterday, and I spent today interviewing potential candidates and messaging and emailing and texting back and forth with people, questions, interested in joining the group. It's just about filled. We have 2 spots left, and so that's going real well. But it was a day of lots of thought, lots of planning. In fact, all week while I'm launching this thing, and that's work, and that's productive, and that gets things done. And I see some comments here. Coach Tony is here, and Coach Tony says if anybody knows how to be a leader, it's Coach Tony. He says alone time is good for me to really think and reflect, then taking some kind of action. Yes, so I'm glad you mentioned that, Coach. It's not just all about thinking. It's thinking so you can then start doing. But it is not running around like a chicken with his head cut off, as they say, just doing without thinking. And I know there's some kind of saying there about someone who, does things without thinking or without planning is not the way to get things done. And in the same way, as Coach Tony points out, just planning and thinking without doing is also, of course, not a way to get anything done. So you got to do both. So thank you, Coach Tony, for your addition to this week's Foundational Friday episode based on The Magic of Thinking Big by Dr. David J. Schwartz. Hopefully you've gone out and got yourself a copy. You might be able to tell we are just about at the end of the book. Those are the very few pages left, basically summary of the book, and then we'll move on to our next one. So let me know if you have an idea of the next foundational book that you want me to delve into, and for at least maybe just 1 or 2 more Foundation Fridays, we'll be finishing this one off. So fantastic ending to the book, The Magic of Thinking Big, as we get into what it takes to be a leader. That's basically putting everything together that we learned from reading and studying this book, because that's what leaders do. We don't just learn things to learn them. We learn things to accomplish things, as Coach Tony says, to take action to get things done. And as business owners, entrepreneurs, of course, that involves leadership. And that's where we'll pick it up again next week as we finish off this final chapter in the book. So thank you, Coach Tony, and everybody else who's here live. Thanks anyone watching on the replay. And I will catch you back here again tomorrow as I help you make money on social media, because it'll be Social Media Saturday. I'll catch you then. Over and out. Bye-bye.